Welcome back, everybody. This time we're diving deep into a relationship dynamic you don't see every day.
Oh, definitely not your typical love story.
Yep. We're talking about Daphne and Miles from Emily Henry's Funny Story.
Great book.
We've got excerpts to work with today, and we're going to see how these two go from being roommates who can barely stand each other.
Oh, well, you'll see.
The setup is anything but romantic. They're thrown together after being dumped by people who are...
Wait, hold on. It's even more complicated than just being dumped.
Right. It's their exes who are the problem.
Okay, so Daphne gets blindsided. Her fiancé, Peter, dumps her for Petra.
His best friend.
Oh, and Petra also happens to be Miles's girlfriend.
Talk about a tangled web.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So these two heartbroken souls end up as roommates.
And that shared experience of betrayal really sets the stage for their connection.
Okay, but their reactions to the breakup are totally different. Daphne is ready to fight fire with fire. She comes up with this crazy fake dating plan to get back at Peter. Which is so Daphne. She's used to being in control, and this whole breakup thing throws her for a loop. The fake dating scheme is her way of trying to regain that control, even if it's a little misguided.
Oh, totally. It makes for some hilarious situations, especially because Miles is so laid back, he just rolls with it. It's like, sure, fake dating. Why not?
You definitely see their personalities clash, which is entertaining, and tells us a lot about who they are.
For sure. But you know what's interesting? Miles is more observant than he lets on. Remember that part where Daphne realizes he knows her schedule by heart?
Because he was sneaking peeks at her calendar? That little detail is huge.
It shows he's paying attention, even if he doesn't always say it out loud.
Exactly. He's not just going through the motions, he picks up on things that matter, which is something Daphne didn't get from Peter.
Yeah, Peter was more concerned with appearances than actual connection.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about that scene at the lake.
Yeah.
Miles takes Daphne to this secret spot. Moonlight on the water, super secluded.
So romantic.
It's the perfect setting for a breakthrough.
And Miles really creates a safe space for Daphne to open up. Away from all the pressure from the fake dating and their friends, they can just be themselves.
And they share their first real kiss. Things start shifting from this awkward friendship to something more.
Which makes sense. They both feel understood in a way they haven't felt in a long time, especially Daphne after being betrayed by Peter.
And it's there that Daphne starts to let her guard down. She talks about her past, her issues with trust. It all stems from her dad walking out when she was younger.
Heavy stuff.
But Miles's consistency, the fact that he actually listens, that makes a huge difference for her.
It's incredible how their shared vulnerability actually helps them grow closer. But then things get complicated.
Of course they do. Enter Julia, Miles's younger sister.
Which adds a whole other layer to their dynamic.
Right, and then there's that kiss in the truck. Talk about charged.
Daphne starts to question everything. She's already insecure, and Julia's arrival makes her wonder where she stands with Miles. And that kiss definitely doesn't make things any easier.
Okay, but we have to talk about the dress scene.
Oh my gosh, the dress scene.
Daphne gets stuck in her old wedding dress.
And Miles tries to help her get out of it with chapstick.
Classic. Emily Henry is a genius at mixing humor with these deeper emotional moments.
It's brilliant, and it shows that Miles is there for Daphne even in the most ridiculous situations.
He totally is. But they both have some serious baggage to unpack. We learn about Miles's difficult relationship with his mom.
He even cut off contact with her.
Which explains a lot about how he handles relationships.
His mom's manipulative behavior made him prioritize his own well-being, his own boundaries. Something Daphne is starting to understand, too. You know, it's fascinating how all their past experiences are shaping their present.
And then Daphne has this realization. She's been expecting the worst from people for so long. But Miles inspires her to change that.
It's a turning point.
For sure. She decides to go for it, to actually believe in the possibility of happiness.
Which leads her to finally confront her dad. Setting those boundaries, taking control. It's incredible to see her taking charge of her own life, her own well-being.
Right. But just when things seem to be falling into place, Emily Henry throws us a curveball.
Oh, tell me about it.
Miles confesses his love for Daphne, but to Ashley, his coworker.
Wrong person, wrong time. It shows he has feelings for Daphne, but he's struggling to say it to her face.
So much tension. Will he ever tell Daphne how he feels? What about Peter and Petra? They're still out there.
Their presence looms over everything. They're a constant reminder of the hurt Daphne and Miles have gone through, a hurdle they'll have to overcome if they want to build something real together.
We've got awkwardness, humor, vulnerability, and undeniable chemistry. It's a roller coaster. but we're just getting started.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll find out if Daphne and Miles can overcome their pasts and find their head happily ever after.
You won't want to miss it.
Welcome back. We left off with Miles confessing his love to the wrong person.
Yeah, how awkward was that? But that's not all. Remember Peter and Petra?
Oh, this is where things get really interesting. Their engagement falls apart.
Which isn't a huge surprise. Their relationship was always kind of a mess.
Totally. And guess who comes crawling back to Daphne?
Oh, no, you're kidding.
Peter suddenly realizes he made a mistake and wants Daphne back?
Talk about bad timing. Daphne is finally starting to see a future with Miles. One built on trust and actual connection.
And then Peter shows up, trying to stir up all those old feelings.
It's classic Peter, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Always wanting what he can't have. But this time, Daphne doesn't fall for it.
This is where you see how much she's grown. She sees through Peter's act.
It's like those grand gestures he's making. They're just empty promises.
Exactly. She deserves more than that.
She's learned her lesson about guys like Peter. It's time for her to be happy.
You go, Daphne. But while she's finding her strength, Miles is struggling.
That accidental confession really threw him for a loop. And now Peter's back.
Poor Miles. He starts doubting everything. His feelings for Daphne, whether they even have a chance.
I mean, can you blame him? He's been hurt before. And the thought of hurting Daphne, too.
He doesn't want to repeat the past. His relationship with his mom really messed him up.
So he shuts down. Starts pushing Daphne away, which is the worst thing he could do.
Right. It's classic avoidant behavior. Trying to protect himself, even if it means hurting Daphne in the process.
And Daphne's just confused. It's like all the progress they made just disappeared.
It's heartbreaking because they obviously care about each other, but they're letting their past get in the way. But this is where things shift.
Daphne decides she's not going to take it anymore.
About time.
She confronts Miles, demands to know why he's acting like this, forces him to face his fears.
This is the climax of the story, the moment of truth.
Everything comes out, all the feelings, all the doubts. It's raw.
Miles admits he's terrified of screwing things up, of hurting Daphne. He's opening up like never before.
And Daphne sees him for who he really is, vulnerable, scared. And that changes everything.
Right. She realizes how deeply he feels, why he's been pushing her away.
And she tells him she loves him. Flaws and all, she's ready to take a chance on them, even if it means risking heartbreak.
Wow. That's powerful. It's like they're finally understanding that real love isn't about being perfect.
It's about accepting each other's imperfections, being vulnerable even when it's scary.
So they're finally going to get their happily ever after, right?
Well, Emily Henry has one more trick up her sleeve.
Oh, no. And now.
While helping Petra move out, Miles runs into Peter.
Ugh, Peter. What did he do?
He drops a bombshell.
Yeah.
Claims he and Petra are getting back together.
You've got to be kidding me.
Classic rom-com move, right? Just when Daphne and Miles have found their way back to each other, Peter has to come in and stir the pot.
It's so frustrating. But it does make you wonder, will their love be strong enough to survive this? Or will they fall back into old patterns?
Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive to find out. All right, so Peter just dropped that bomb about getting back together with Petra. Do we buy it?
I don't know. It seems like classic Peter behavior, right? Saying whatever he needs to get his way. He probably just wants to mess with Daphne's head.
Oh, totally. Make her jealous. Try to win her back now that she's happy with someone else. As if.
It's almost laughable how predictable he is, but you know what's amazing? Daphne doesn't even flinch.
She's come a long way. She sees him for what he is, a manipulator.
It's a huge moment of growth for her. Instead of falling for his tricks, she calls him out.
Tells him she's done with his games. It's so empowering.
Yeah.
Choosing Miles wasn't just some rebound thing for her.
It was a conscious choice, a decision to build something real, something healthy. It's a good reminder for all of us that sometimes walking away is the best thing you can do, even if it hurts.
So true. Create space for real happiness. But what about Miles? How does he handle Peter's little announcement?
It actually pushes Miles to face his own fears. He knows he can't let his insecurities ruin what he has with Daphne.
So he finally steps up.
He does. And he does it in the most romantic way possible. He goes to the library where Daphne works and declares his love. Oh, that's so sweet.
With a box of fudge, no less.
Fudge? Why fudge?
Remember that time Miles stood Daphne up for a date and sent her fudge as an apology?
Oh, right. And she was not happy about it.
Exactly. Back then it represented their lack of communication, how Miles was shutting down emotionally.
Classic Miles move. But this time it's different.
This time, the fudge comes with a genuine, heartfelt declaration. He's rewriting their story.
I love that. He's owning up to his mistakes, showing Daphne he's ready to be open, to be vulnerable.
And she sees it. She feels it. This time she believes him.
So they finally get their happy ending. After all the drama, all the back and forth.
They do. They choose each other. They
Yeah.
choose to take a chance on love even though it's scary.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Trusting each other, being open, working through the tough stuff together.
Beautifully said. And it makes you think, what if they had never gone through all that? What if they hadn't been forced to confront their pasts, their fears?
Would they have settled for less? For relationships that were safe, but ultimately unfulfilling? That's something for all of you listening to consider. Maybe Daphne and Miles' story has made you think about your own relationships. Are you playing it safe? Or are you going for it? Are you choosing love?
Those are some great questions. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through funny story.
Until next time.